Greetings and salutations everyone, I'm Ekamak, this is Let's Play Oxygen Not Included. In the last episode I went slightly over time. I talked a lot about keeping your shine bugs out of your sleeping quarters is what I remember. I talked a bit about the food stuff that we need to keep from starving. And I talked about something that we don't have access to because we don't have refined metal. So I've set up a rock crusher production order. Copper is probably going to be our most common element on this world, so it's okay if we waste a lot of copper, because if you look here, for 100 kilograms of copper ore, we produce 50 copper and 50 sand, so we lose about half of it in the production process. If we were to say look at a hatch, if you breed the smooth hatch, unfortunately, there's a lot that they want to eat, so there's a lot in the way of the smooth hatch list. They take in 100 kilograms of copper, but produce 75, so you get extra copper. You also, if you look at this, it produces a lot of heat by being used. If we were to set up a copper smooth hatch ranch, that actually reduces the heat production by a lot. We have a bunch of airflow related things, but nothing that we specifically want major things for yet. He's still working on getting those automated airlocks under production. The thing is, I get the feeling that by the time if we wait until we have the time to deal with all these bad gases, we're going to end up way too behind on our hatch ranching, so I think it's just time to bite the bullet. Oh, actually, I didn't properly show it off. We got access to gold amalgam. This is a metal ore similar to copper ore. However, it works differently, so if we get something that requires metal ore, these are all the stats of the building by base, so overheat temperature is the important number to look at right now. If we build something out of copper, it gets a 10% decor bonus. Nothing else interesting. If we build it out of gold amalgam, it gets a 10% decor bonus. It's considered thermally reactive, so it requires little energy to raise in temperature. But it adds 50 degrees to the overheat bonus, so 75 degrees now becomes 125 degrees. Look after your gold amalgam, please. There's a lot of buildings where you need to work it in higher temperatures, and until you can start making materials capable of handling those, gold amalgam is what you rely on. And heck, you might use gold amalgam anyway, because even though it says thermally reactive and heats and cools quickly, it actually doesn't. It takes a lot of effort to change the temperature of this stuff. When building airlocks to keep the temperatures from shifting too quickly, you want to build it out of gold amalgam. Anyway, with all that said, next person to upgrade their skill should be Hassan. Actually, Hassan is already ready to upgrade to super hard digging, which means that we can now extract this abyssite and expand our travel distance even further. We want to dig out this area, but we want to dig up this area more because they're currently cramped. And the longer they stay cramped, the worse. We could also dig our way up to here if we so were inclined, but that's something we could save for later. Because this thing here is a Rubik's Cube, this mystery of the universe has already been solved. This is a... So then, if we look at the achievements... Right, we got that yesterday. These are our victory milestones. Getting one of these counts as a victory. Cosmic Archaeology. Study 10 different terrestrial artifacts and study 10 different space artifacts. There are renewable artifacts in space, but the first time you visit you get something unique, plus there's all these terrestrial artifacts. You remember how I said that it's very difficult to recharge these things? Artifacts are how you do it. Whenever you analyze one of these artifacts, they have a chance of dropping a facilitator recharge. Very important stuff. Actually, I want you to dig this up more than I want you to dig that up, please. Oh dear. Although, digging out that hatch from the dangerous area there would be important too. And I guess the next person to get their skill up is Ren. I'd say one more day should do it. So I guess back up to double speed. Yeah, this carbon dioxide area is getting a bit out of hand. I think we need to swap this oxygen diffuser back on. It's just not producing enough oxygen overall. The problem is that if we produce too much, then it causes our food to start rotting. It's all a balancing act, and at any moment it could all come tumbling down. That was probably my favourite music track from A Realm Reborn, if we're honest. Okay, research complete. We have mechanized airlocks. These are important for the Hatch Ranch. And I guess when we want... So, the two types of research that we don't have. Data analysis and applied sciences. Data analysis is gotten here. It uses the data banks that we've gotten here and there to turn into the orange research points. But it takes this virtual planetarium to research it. Over here we have material sciences. It uses radiation to work. And the thing is, the only source of radiation we get in the early game is this thing here. Somewhere in the world there's going to be a clump of uranium ore that you can then turn into radioactive, into red bolts, and therefore research. But we can't dig over to here quite yet, so it would be a waste to go into materials research. So what I'm going to do instead is this. We're going to research long-term into the advanced automation because we want to automate this ranch. And sweet. So, what is it that Sweetels do? Let's see if they show it off at some point. They'd probably be more inclined to show it off if they had a way to get at the plants. Oh yeah, actually they did, this one. So, a Sweetel rubbed against this plant for a tiny growth boost. It grows 5% faster for about 9 cycles. That's what Sweetels do, so they're a nice thing to have for your colony if you're struggling for food. Especially since they produce meat upon death. They grow and die quite quickly. 75 cycles is a pretty low lifespan, but then their eggs also hatch faster than hatch eggs do. We've at least started to get it through our research here. Yeah, ceiling light produces light when powered. I normally install one in the research lab, but I don't need to because I have this shine bug here. A lamp does the same thing, but it sits on the ground instead of the roof. The flower pot is just for decor. We don't have anything useful for decor yet. Oxygen. Carbon skimmer gets rid of carbon dioxide. We don't want to touch this yet, because it turns water into polluted water to get rid of carbon dioxide. The problem is we have no way to turn polluted water back into water. The deodorizer is actually a thing I want to install everywhere, thank you please. One here, one here, one here. One would be here if I didn't need the plant. Yeah. So what they do is they use sand and a tiny bit of power. That wasn't always the case and I hate that. They use sand and power to convert polluted oxygen into oxygen. And oxygen purifies germs in it a bit faster. Plus it doesn't give people the yucky lungs debuff. So both are things that we want to get at. I think I need another oxygen diffuser over here. Honestly, if I weren't Let's Playing, I think I'd have restarted pretty early because I just didn't like the starting setup. We have lice loaf at least, so we aren't going to starve. That's a different game by Clay. But all that said, I think I need to start doing the mush bar trick. So then, pause. Think about how far into the future I expect to not have food. Let's say, Okay, so we can't cook more than 10 cycles worth of food without cutting it close. So let's just say 5 cycles. And we have 5 duplicates, so we need 5 mush bars each. Edible putrefied mud slop. Preferable to starvation, but only just barely. This food has a major problem attached to it. And in fact, that problem is why I'm going to install an auto sweeper here. The thing about mush bar is that they start out with the food poisoning stats on them. You can't get, and the thing is, food poisoning on edible food grows. We have a workaround, but as it is, when Gene makes the first mush bar for the colony, we have to be absolute ready to catch it and forbid anyone from eating it with this menu. Because what we can do is we can immediately throw it into the electric grill and turn it into a mush fry. And because it's being fried through high temperatures, it should clear off the majority of the germs, if not all of them. And usually we wouldn't be able to build an auto sweeper this early in the game. Usually you have to wait till you get 5 skill points on any person before you can get the mechatronics engineering. But because we gave it to him in exchange for him eating extra food, Hassan can build it immediately. If you really have a poor time with the save scumming, you can go for electrical engineering instead, because then you just have to get carrying, improved carrying, then mechatronics engineering, so you only need 3 skill points to get it. But that's only if you're having the absolute worst time with your RNG. It still takes up as much time, it still forces them to get one of the extreme negative traits. So you might as well get the one you want from the first slot. Okay, Jean is almost finished making this. Pause. Banned from eating mush bars. You're not eating a mush bar. And yeah, food safety. The food my duplicates cook will only ever be as clean as the ingredients used to make it. Store it in sterile or refrigerated environments keeps it free of germs, while carefully placed hygiene stations like wash basin or shower prevent cooks from infecting the food by handling it. If it's dangerously contaminated, we can send it to the compost by clicking the compost button icon on it. So if we look at this mush bar, it already has 970 germs on it. It's also exposed to radiation, so it's going to die off instantly should this shine bug choose to stick around, but I think I'd rather just throw it into the mush fry. Also, we finished the automation research, which is nice. Duplicate sensors will detect if a duplicate is close by. Automation wire, which we just ran out of, is used for deactivating or activating buildings based on the automation input. Oh, and if you look here, this auto sweeper is actually feeding in the dirt and the copper needed for each of these constructions, which is very nice. What would be nicer would be if we had more copper to work with, though. Oh, speaking of that, we are almost out of food, but... So this little animation of him flexing, this was also added in the most recent patch. So, ranching and supplying, he's buff, but he's unconstructive and shabby dresser. Ellie is a yokel who can cook and ranch, but uncultured. Nails, only good for farming, an interior decorator, so that's negative morale, but germ resistant, and a kitchen menace. This duplicate could probably figure out a way to burn ice cream. Muscles on their muscles, incapable of building even the most basic of structures. Clearly never heard of ironing. Move it a little to the left. Immune system bounces back more than most. This duplicate simply has no appreciation for the arts. This duplicate isn't the brightest star in the solar system. Our food supply is critical, but I kind of want someone for dedicated operating. But if we get a pufflet now... Oh dear, this is a tricky question, isn't it? I think I'll go for a pufflet because if I get a duplicate who's going to be operating 24/7, they might as well have an interest in operating. But speaking of which, Ren is now a farmer. Ren can now catch all these hatches rushing about the place. The thing is, Ren can only capture specific animals. And we also need to get our focus back onto clearing into this area. But specifically, if they travel in the air, you can't wrangle them. Ground-based critters, with one exception, or, well actually no, two exceptions, can be captured, but nothing that flies. And oh dear, this Squeezewater is going to die. Yeah, So the reason they introduced all these slush... So, in the DLC, there will be one steam geyser, one cool slush geyser, and one cool saltwater geyser. The cool slush and cool saltwater geyser will start out in the ice biomes, and they tend to melt everything by constantly emitting new liquids that are just at the melting point for 2 of the 3 elements in the zone. These were introduced to help with heat crunch, because it was so trickier to deal with the smaller areas. But the problem is that it also means that the ice biomes are a lot less sustainable now. And you're quite likely to see certain plants die out of no fault of your own. I think though, actually this little sleetweed is going to be perfectly fine unless this snow melts, which actually it is looking like it's going to start melting. But the way that we have oxygen here and polluted water here and there, it's actually going to be impossible for the polluted water to force its way into here unless it ruptures one of these places. Oh, actually I take it back. Chances are it's going to drown when this polluted ice melts. Unfortunate. So yeah, while we're here we might as well talk about radiation. Radiation is generated from certain things, be they wheezeworts or shine bugs. There are plenty of other ways to do it, but those are the 2 ways we have access to at the moment. Duplicants exposed to radiation will slowly build it up over time. It's a little bit unfortunate for the poor duplicants, but they don't care unless they get to large amounts of, well, absorbed rads. Once the rad absorb reaches certain thresholds, they start getting sick, needing more time on the toilet, or even throwing up to try and get the rads out of their system. When they go to the toilet is when they release it, so to speak. Yeah, so Nisbet just went to the bathroom, and now Nisbet has 0 rads. Oh, we have pacu filet! Okay, we always want to cook pacu filet when it shows up, because pacu filet is meat, it's worth 4 morale, but if we cook it, it gets an extra 600 kilocalories, and it basically the more kilocalories we can squeeze out of our meats, the faster we can get the carnivore achievement. Oh, actually, yeah, we didn't get someone new, so we're still doing well. But the thing is, it also means we want to make sure that nobody ever eats a food. We never want them to eat raw meats, we only want them to eat pre-prepared meats. There's actually a specific recipe that turns barbecue, which is made out of meat, and pacu filet, which was, well, cooked seafood, which is made out of pacu filet. We can combine those 2 into an even better meal, but it requires access to natural gas, which while we do have it here, we don't have a safe way to harvest this, because if you look here, it's going to be 150 degrees Celsius. It will barbecue people if we try to use this as barbecue to power the stove, so no, not going to happen. Wait, no, don't build it there. Build it 1 tile lower. No! You were about to deliver the food. Why did you stop? Alright, let's see. These guys are happy. That's probably a safe enough size for the moment. so reduce the priority of this critter drop-off. Actually, he's not getting fed, but he's been groomed. Wild critters don't have to worry about food. Tame critters do. So we've started building our way to our proper hatch ranches. But we've still got a long way to go before this is able to feed the colony, so yeah, it is probably a good thing that we started working on our mush bar, mush fries. Actually, how much space is this? If I set this to mop liquid spills and click and drag, that doesn't help. Has to be the dig tool. So it's about here. That's where we want to lock off the hatch ranch because it just won't have any room left. And here's one of the changes that I really don't like about the DLC that made its way into the base game, unfortunately. This is a sterile environment, but the food still rots. So these pincher pepper plants, they actually grow little herbs that can't be eaten on their own and have to be combined with certain other foods to become edible. The thing is, these are completely sterile environments, but because they aren't refrigerated or super refrigerated, the food still rots. You used to be able to build up huge food supplies just by having them kept in carbon dioxide permanently, but that's not a thing anymore. Does it make sense? Yes. But I still don't like it. Because I still have to go over the carnivore achievement, and now there's another way I can run out of food when I'm in this early game. I have no meat, and I have locavore, so I have no plants. Yeah, we are definitely running low on food here. On the left side we have more research. So, plug these in. By plugging the automation... hang on. Automation. This is an input, so if it gets a green signal, the building is enabled. If it gets a red signal, the building is disabled. This is an output. If it detects a duplicate, then it sends a green signal. Otherwise, it sends a red signal. By default, all building or all automation lines are red. This is a very basic setup. It's used to ensure that the only time that we have the building is running is when it detects there's a duplicate nearby. And therefore a duplicate that can get the lit workspace buff. And since that's plugged in, we can also construct that, but the important point is that when someone is working, having a light source nearby speeds up the work, and therefore it decreases the time that they're running the station, and so we're going to have less time spent on 60 watts. It's sort of a, do you want to do the job at normal speed for 60 watts for the duration? Or do you want to do the job at increased speed, but for 70 watts for the duration? Maybe it's not the most productive use for this time. Maybe it's not productive on these ones, but I still just do it for anything that can get lit workspace. Also, what achievement did we get? We got one for automation and we got one for eating cooked food. Great. Yeah, we are going to have to end up dealing with all this chlorine and hydrogen in the base. It's going to absolutely mess up the plants, though. Are there other hatches that we haven't gotten our hands on? No, so I think that... Okay, we have to get at the food because it's going to eventually rot. And we need to get at these Sweetels because they're eventually going to die out. They're going to overcrowd and die out if we don't fix that. That's a... Okay, we make this a level 8 requirement. We make this level 7. But then we're going to have to go all in on digging. We need to turn our base upside down to get our hands on any muckroot that's still hidden in these rocks, but also to uncover as many hatches as possible. Because the more hatches we have at the start, the faster we can get full hatch ranches and the faster we can swap over to turning those eggs into meat. As you can see, because we have a lot of granite and igneous rock over here, it's actually letting all of the cold air from the ice biome flow down into here. Abyssalite is special. It has a 0% thermal conductivity, so no matter how cold or hot it looks, it's never going to let temperatures cross over. What lets the temperatures cross over is usually when it's a less insulated material in between them. And I'm just going to use this little digging trick to make sure that when Hassan finishes getting through the abyssalite, we're going to keep our diggers and builders in this area. 13%. That's... So this is going to rot in 2 days. I think what I want to do is I want to turn off spindly grubfruit eating and turn on infinite spindly grubfruit cooking. And then maybe... we can make this igneous rock ladder rather than a sandstone ladder, because igneous rock is closer and so they'll have less distance to travel before they can start building this. Once we dig our way into this little wasteland biome, it will be fine because there's plenty of sandstone here. And as I've said before, sandstone is the well, maybe I haven't said it about sandstone. I said it about copper ore. It's the expendable metal ore. Sandstone is the expendable raw mineral. Everything else is a little more precious at the moment. And Ren is building things. It would have been nice if he could work on this area, but as said before, we only have one person that can dig in that area, and I've gone over time, so this is a good time to cut the episode. Good thing I looked over to the right, because I can't look over to the left. Until next time, guys, take care. I'll see you all around.